Hello, everyone, and welcome to Magma Rage's episode 16. With me, as usual, I have Pandemonia. How are you doing, Pandemonia?
Good yourself. Good.
I'm good, I'm good. We've had some interesting news this week. We've had a patch from Blizzard.
Yay.
Not really like a balance patch or anything like that. This time it's kind of just like adding features to the game, which is something we unfortunately don't see often enough, in my opinion. And it's really good to see like some of these features, which are some of them are just small quality of life features, but they're pretty great, I think.
I think a lot of them honestly are long overdue in
Yeah.
terms of if anybody's ever used any third-party sites, they will know you could build a deck and import export decks for the past good few years now. So like I'm happy to see that the Blizzard and Hearthstone have eventually actually added the ability to build your own decks now, to
Yeah.
import and export decks.
Yeah, they've added a lot of functionality that's been available through a lot of other means, but
Yeah.
also, a lot of quality of life improvements that are like really help. And we're going to go through those now. So let's just go through this patch notes from the top. First off, we have the deck importing, right? This is
Yeah.
probably the big poster feature of this patch.
Yeah.
So now it's possible to copy your deck list and share it with a friend. There's a long, unique string that's generated at the bottom of the copy that can be shared. The one annoying thing I find with these copies though is that like it actually copies out your whole deck list, right? So you kind of have to paste it into like Notepad or something before you then copy just the little string or the longish string to give to your friends. So if you want to copy paste a deck list across, let's say, BattleNet specifically, you can't actually do that because the unique string part gets cut off because BattleNet has a limitation to the length of the message you
Oh
can
no, I
send.
haven't tried that. Are you serious?
Yeah, it's kind of like ridiculous for that sense.
Wow.
So you have to copy it to like Notepad or like some application like that, and then
Oh,
copy it back with
oh
just
my.
a little string, which is a little bit of a a silly thing. Maybe if they even just moved the string to the front, then copy pasting it in BattleNet would work because they would still get the first part, which is the really important part.
Yeah.
So
Isn't it like a
basically,
short, the two string on the two string versions is like one comprehensive string and then one like abbreviated one that you can use?
oh, I don't know. I've only been using the long string because
Because I remember reading.
but
But
yeah,
anyway, yeah.
I mean, basically the way it works is you go into your collection, you can see like a relatively detailed instruction guide here. If you when you click on your deck, as long as your deck is full, in other words, has 30 cards and is a valid deck, you'll see a drop down option for copy. You copy that and it goes onto the clipboard, and then you can when you have a deck on your clipboard, you just go into your collection or click new deck. Sometimes there's a lot of weird points at which it checks to see your clipboard if you have a that deck string list, and then it'll
Oh
ask
yes.
you like, do you want to import the deck on your clipboard, and you just click yes, and then it'll nicely build the deck for you, putting in golden cards as it can,
Yeah.
and that's pretty nice. And yeah, so and the one thing whilst we're on the golden cards, I suppose. Um, actually, let's just talk a little bit more about this deck importing first. Have you used it much?
I have used like the thing is before I still use Hearthstone Deck Tracker and now they basically sort of implemented it as part of there.
Mm.
So like basically it does the same now it's basically just does the same thing, where you just go copy paste. I mean it is quite handy. It does take I'm not going to say a while because I mean it does only take a few seconds, but like you sit there watching it and it feels like it adds the cards quite slowly.
Yes, it isn't quite as fast as Hearthstone Deck Tracker at building your deck, but Hearthstone
Yeah.
Deck Tracker has the downside of you can't move your mouse whilst it's
Yeah.
doing it. And sometimes Hearthstone Deck Tracker also tends to screw up, miss a card here or something like that. So
Yeah.
it's nice that you don't have to go find this, as this is a reliable way. I imagine
Well,
a lot of
they've now
those.
implemented now into it. They used to, but now they've also changed it because now basically,
Yes.
obviously, everything's based on it. But
Yeah,
the
that's
old
what.
way,
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like I expect all of these tertiary tools that people use like Hearthstone Deck Tracker and all of this to just implement this system now, as at least it's
Exactly.
giving everyone a universal way of doing that. And it's a really nice feature to see. Um, just a
Long,
big
like I say,
quality of
long
life
overdue.
improvement. Yeah, yeah. And it's something I think that's going to help, especially the players that weren't using deck trackers before and didn't have this availability uh, open to them.
It
Uh,
helps if you're on the phone, for example.
Yes, yes, I actually have used it for that. I literally just copy pasted the deck list from a Twitter thing onto my phone, and I was like, ah, sweet, that's perfect. Because you don't have to you don't have another screen on a phone to like look at the deck list whilst you're building it, and can't use a
Exactly.
deck tracker. So it definitely helps a lot on those mobile devices.
Or net decker.
Yeah, and it also helps for sharing decks in a way through like Twitter.
Oh,
So a lot of people tend to share deck lists on Twitter, and now you can actually share the code. Um, and that's nice. Except Twitter has a character limitation of 144 characters, and the code is pretty long in terms of characters, so it doesn't give you much other space to work with.
you can
So
say, look at deck.
yeah, there is like you kind of have to like reply to yourself with the deck or something, right? Uh,
Hey,
like that's kind of a sneakier way of doing it, or use something like twit longer in order to get a longer tweet to put your deck list in, and
yeah,
that
give an
that's
introduction.
unfortunate. If they could maybe have a way of coding it into a smaller
Yo. Now
string
you're
or
asking
something like
for
that.
next level.
Well, not really. There's
Might
definitely
take another 3 years.
compression.
Might,
There's
might
definitely
take another three
compression you
years.
could use on those strings. But anyway, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
expect that anytime soon. It's certainly better than nothing, and better than having to figure out somebody's deck list from like a picture on Twitter, a
Oh yes,
screenshot of the
especially
deck
some.
list.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and speaking of screenshots of deck lists, the thing that they fixed that we were briefly mentioned just now as well was gold cards. So now if
Yeah.
you have one of a gold card and one of the non-version of that card, they now stack. And this is like a huge thing to me. I love having gold cards in my deck, but when they kind of like cause the deck to be difficult to read, it's really a pain. So now we see
Yeah.
you get this like half and half effect, which is actually
Yeah.
quite a pretty effect, I think.
Actually, it
Um,
is. Yeah. Half
yeah,
gold. Like the left half is gold, and the left half is normal.
or the
Uh,
right half is normal, yes.
well, the right half is normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
But because I was also noticing, I think I don't know if it was intentional or not, but previously, if you notice, if you ever stacked like a gold and a non-gold card, the screenshot of the image showed like a different part, so it looked really weird. So
Oh, really?
so you see, on the right hand side of the card,
Yeah, the little
like
image.
it shows you part of the image. And if but previously when you had a gold and a non-gold, it literally showed you like slightly different parts of it,
Oh, I never
and
noticed that.
it looked really weird. And someone who's quite OCD,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is
but yeah,
very annoying. But
I
this
mean
is
this is
this
really
is
nice now.
great. This is really nice. Helps clean up my deck lists as well, so that I can
Yeah.
still put those single copy golden cards as I have not yet reached crip levels of 600,000 dust.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
also now, I would say, it helps people taking screenshots, but now that you can share the decks, it's becoming a lot easier because obviously, I don't know if you remember where, the good old days where you had to, take a screenshot, scroll down to take
Yeah, yeah.
another screenshot. Is now, besides this feature, you can also just use the export deck now.
Yeah. And the export deck thing will always favor golden cards if you have them in your collection, even if the original version didn't have golden cards, I believe. So that's quite nice. Unless of course you don't like having one of golden cards, then it can be kind of annoying. Um,
Like Savage.
yeah.
Like I don't know if you noticed, but he almost always runs, even the basic cards, he runs non-golden. He only runs like the random legendaries golden.
Uh, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's like an argument to make that you shouldn't have one golden and one normal because sometimes your
Yeah,
opponent can track, especially if you're playing two games against your opponent. The first game you play a golden copy, second game you play a non-golden copy. Well, now they know you have two copies of that card in your deck, right?
yeah,
Whereas they might not know that otherwise. But
yeah,
it's like relatively small to be honest. So yeah, I mean I like this half golden effect, and it just does a lot to clean up the deck list, which is really nice.
yeah.
Um, yeah, there's also some refinements to the collection manager searches. Not something I've really used much. Uh,
Yeah,
And
You
I
have
did
to,
notice
yeah.
though that the error messages were better. So like you don't just get an empty page when you search for something that you like misspelled, like Thalnos, and you put the N before the L or something. I mean
Oh,
that's
really?
the
I haven't
example
tried
I
that.
did. Like
Oh,
I typed in badly the name of the card, and then it was like no card exists with that name, and I was like, oh okay, it's because I typed in the name badly, not like do I not have this card?
oh, it doesn't say like, did you mean? Oh, they haven't reached the
No,
advanced
no.
stages of. Did you mean?
No, no, that kind of a search stuff is actually really difficult. Like as a developer myself, I've tried to implement something like that, and it's a pain. It's a
Did
serious
you mean
pain.
donuts?
Yeah. So the collection, the searching's got a bit better. Um,
They've gradually been the thing I've noticed about the thing is they've just quietly here and there add extra features to the collection manager. So like a while ago they added the ability you could like filter by owned. You could say owned
yeah,
3, or you could type in extra, and it would show you there were little extra commands you could, and
yeah,
they gradually rolled in extras in, which is nice.
yeah. It is really nice. It's they're a little bit difficult to use unless you know about them.
Yeah, you
Like you
have to
have to
know the
know all the
syntax
command,
though.
the syntax, and that can be a bit a bit tricky. Like, I think a lot of people they'll be like, "What?" when they actually discover that they can do half the stuff now. So that's pretty cool. Um, so um, yeah, let's see what else. The big other news is the ranked wins. There's a lot of other bug fixes and stuff, and they've the one in particular that was annoying to me was being stuck in spectating. That happened to me very often
I'd have
when
almost any game
spectating people on
expected.
that. Yeah. So
Oh,
I'm
that
very
was,
glad
yeah.
they fixed that. They've reintroduced some bugs, but I'm sure they'll fix them again soon, as any big patch like this will
Fix.
result in.
You
Yeah.
break something else.
So then, the other big news, the one that got everyone hyped up on Twitter in particular, was ranked wins for each hero will now tally beyond 500. I must say, I didn't notice this in the patch notes. I only noticed this after it came out, and I was like, what? So I had to quickly go check my wins, because especially with classes that you got like golden with like a while ago, like Hunter, which was like my first golden, playing a lot of like mid-range Hunter, and like like my rogue and mage have been golden for a long time, so I had no idea how many wins I had. So it's a really nice feature to be able to see exactly how many wins.
Yeah.
And like I find it gives me a lot of motivation as well. I was like, oh, now I have motivation to get this hero to 1,000 wins, which is like just an arbitrary personal goal, but it's nice to actually know. So like I found myself playing more of a class just to like try and round off the numbers nicely.
And then you're on a win streak, and you're like, oh, I'll just play one more, and then
Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, like that's quite handy. I mean, you obviously, you get to see okay who's been playing Love Hearthstone, and then I don't know if we're gonna move on to now you see on Twitter some
Yeah.
of the pros share their numbers, and
Yeah. It can be motivating, and then you like see some of the pros and you're like, oh, I thought I was good at warrior. So like let's say, well, what was your warrior number?
so my warrior wins ranked is 1,400, and
Yeah,
everyone
which
on
is a
like
pretty good number.
it's,
That's pretty high. That's a lot of warrior. It's a lot of
yeah.
pyro warrior you've been playing there, Pandemonium.
Actually, ironically, it's historically most control warrior.
Oh,
Like
sure, sure. We believe you. We
I, I
definitely believe
I had
you.
Golden Warrior before Pirate Warrior was a thing. Like I
Yeah.
was that cool kid. I had Golden Warrior before it was cool. But then
If
it
I'd
gets put
played
to
more
shame.
patron, maybe I would be around
Yeah.
then. But
And then you get put to shame by guys like you look at Fibonacci. Granted, he's the warrior god, and he has about a cool 22,000 wins with warrior.
yeah, 20,000, and that's definitely mostly control warrior.
And yeah, control
Yeah.
warrior. And just remember, wins.
Wins,
So the
yeah,
fact
yeah.
is, that means he's like, depending on his win rate, he's played 35 to 40,000 games with warrior.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous numbers. I mean, I think it was Sottle that put out a tweet looking for whoever could find like the most, basically. I think he was at first just looking for people over 10k. And I mean, we had like Fibonacci, I think was the highest that I saw at least on 22,000. I didn't really see any of the Chinese players ones, and I imagine some of them could be close,
Flamingo
although a lot
Bums
of them
was
probably
just below
started.
Fibonacci.
Who?
Flamingo Bums.
Oh, okay.
He
Yeah,
was
yeah.
just below, like he was literally, I think, one win below Fibonacci's
Oh, wow.
in
That's
control.
a lot, yeah.
Yeah,
Um, And we also had like Zedalot on 21,000 priest wins.
yeah,
And
that
priest has not always been that good. So
Not just that,
that
it's
that that
never been a fast class either.
yes. Well, I mean, like Fibonacci's, like I'm pretty sure those are mostly Control Warrior, so I'm pretty sure those were not that was not done quickly either. But
Yeah.
Control Warrior has had its periods where it's been very good, so your win rate's going to be high. Whereas the Priest, yeah, it hasn't really had the greatest decks for a long time. So you know that means Zealot has played a lot of Priest, and we knew he was kind of like one of the Priest masters. But yeah, 21,000 wins is a lot with
With
Priest.
Priest, like,
I
like
mean,
I'm just
Fibonacci for contrast had 22 wins on Priest, I think.
yeah, yeah. It was quite amusing to see his like Fibonacci's like, oh yeah, 22,000, and these others are like, he's got a few with 1,000 wins, and then there's like Priest at 22. You know, I
Yeah,
think Hunter with like 150 wins.
yeah,
Shaman is yeah, the Shaman he's like got 150 wins with. I think it's quite amusing. Obviously, he's just focused on Warrior.
yeah. I mean, he's definitely like a ladder grinder, right? That's where a lot of these things come out. It is the ladder grinders that will have huge wins on specific classes, especially
Yeah,
if you don't really play a lot of cups, because you know those cup wins are not really counting towards your ladder wins,
ranked.
obviously. So if you play a lot of cups, you know, then your actual wins with the class is going to be higher than those wins because you know those are just not counted. So
Yeah,
you know, if you play a lot of cup games with, let's say, Rogue or something, it might actually be that you've played a lot more games with Rogue and won a lot more than that number reflects. So that number can be a little bit false, but largely it does tell you just how much certain players spam certain classes.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we also saw, speaking of Rogue, Cassie having over 9,500 Rogue across his accounts,
Yeah,
being like, I think it was a relatively even split between EU and NA, and then
it's like 4.5, 3.5, and like 1.5, something like
yeah, yeah.
that.
So I mean, you know, that is over 9,000 as our title is focusing on. That's over 9,000 wins with Rogue, and that's
Also
pretty
very
impressive. I
impressed.
mean, Cassie is like a well-known rogue experts as well. And Laughing was the one that I thought might have been able to challenge Fibonacci. Laughing, of course, is pretty much universally known as the best freeze mage player. There's a few players that would like to contest him for that honor, but considering he plays almost exclusively freeze mage most of the time, it's hard to contest him on that front. He only
Again,
had around like 11,000 wins though,
only
combined with his win.
11,000.
Yeah, but like I was expecting more from Laughing, to be honest. It's
Yeah,
like he plays a lot of Hearthstone and it's almost always freeze mage. Like I don't think I've seen him play much other like any other mages decks other than a bit of Reno mage and some of this like Burn Gunther mage recently. But that is almost exclusively freeze mage.
yeah. And it's
So
also a lot of time.
yeah, freeze mage also not traditionally the fastest of decks. Uh,
No,
Especially, you know, Fibonacci plays against Laughing. Although Laughing would probably actually concede that game if he knew
yeah,
Fibonacci was playing Control Warrior, because he does sometimes concede. I remember watching him play Freeze Mage in a period when Control Warrior was quite rampant on ladder, and like the moment you see Justicar, it's like, yep, concede.
yeah. Like that.
Like against a good player, you know you're not going to win that matchup.
Again, even average players, to be very honest, as soon as I know it's freeze mage, and especially with Justicar, you just go, you accept.
Yeah. Those days when the Control Warriors were good against Freeze Mage. Now, not so much.
Yeah, you don't have that armor ramp. Besides, I mean, now you got armor smiths.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, so I mean that's a lot of players with you know, some really really high numbers there for wins. I mean, sort of just further cementing their positions as experts in their classes that we kind of knew that they were
yeah,
already. But I mean, I thought that was a really nice feature, and it created a lot of hype around Hearthstone. So that's great. Like, it's amazing what a small thing like that can actually do for a
to
lot of
get
the
people
players that
interested.
put, yeah, and for a lot of players that put like so much time into Hearthstone already as it is.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Um, so next we're going to be moving on to our other major segment for this week, and something we're going to focus on
No, we
a bit.
missed the patch notes. You missed the fact that you now can quest with friends.
Oh, right, of course, yeah, yeah, sorry. You can quest with friends now, which I mean, basically just means for when you get that awkward Murloc quest and you don't want to play uh, Murloc Paladin or something on ladder, then you can actually just play your like Murloc Druid or Murloc Rogue or whatever.
Yeah.
Any random deck filled with random
Yeah, it
rubbish that
does.
wouldn't be very
Or
good.
like currently now, win 5 games with Warlock, and you're like, well, I
Yeah,
mean, you don't want to go into Wild, or you don't, it's just quick.
yeah.
A lot of times, it's just quicker as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean it's nice because it also encourages people to play against each other a lot, and that's one of
You can all be
the
friends.
social aspects that digital card games can sometimes lack. You
Mm.
don't get that of playing against your friend and having all these cool stories with your friend all the time. So, it's important to just encourage that. And let's say I go, oh, Pandemonia, come on, let's go play. I need to complete these quests. Now you can. That'll also be encouraging you to play as well. So, it's a sneaky way to get more people to play as well as help free-to-play players complete their quests.
And also, like, I think it's just kind of build a community. Sometimes you get people adding you, just going, oh, I have this quest, do you want to play? And because some people sometimes just start playing and then they don't have any friends on Battle.net. As bad as it sounds,
Yeah.
sometimes you start and you just don't know anybody, and then after a while you just start and then you chat, and then, like that's one of the I think the key ways that the community grows and builds is when you chat about to each other and you talk about the game. You talk about salt, I mean, a lot of
Mm.
people end up becoming friends. You end up chatting about salt and how you got lucky or unlucky, and
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Hearthstone creates a lot of memorable moments, and having those people that you can share those memorable moments with, makes a big difference and can make things feel a lot more enjoyable, even when they are very salty moments that you're trying to share,
exactly.
as
And
you
not
would
to mention,
well know.
yes, yes. And yeah, there was just a bunch of like random bug fix, but I think that's most of the bug fix. But that was just the other major feature I think was
Yeah, yeah,
fixed.
yeah.
Sure.
So then moving on to our other major segment and something we're going to try and do a lot more going forward, or make it more of a regular segment is what's been happening in esports this week, particularly obviously Hearthstone esports based on the content of this podcast. Um, and
Plus CS:GO this week.
oh, the drama. Um, so this weekend concluded the round of HCT playoffs.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go into a bit to explain the playoff system first of all. Do you want to explain how the different seasons work? Let's start with that in the Hearthstone Championship Tour.
So you've got the spring. It's the spring. You got the spring, the summer, and the winter. Like I don't think there's an autumn, right? The autumn
No,
is basically last
last
call.
call. Yeah.
But basically for each season, you try to get HCT points, and you get HCT points for either. I think you get 1 point for just making legend, and then
Yes.
basically you like if you make top 100 legend, I think, then basically obviously you start getting a scaling amount of increasing points all
Yeah.
the way
Yeah.
to if you come first, you get. I'm not.
12 points.
I think like I know you get a bunch of points, but I'm not sure the
Yeah.
exact numbers.
Well, I've got the numbers on screen here
And
in front of me.
then
Yeah.
then you can play also the cups, but the cup system is interesting because you only get points for the one you did the most per month.
Well,
So
yeah, the best placement in a month.
so you can play 10 cups and basically you only get the points for whichever result you did the best in.
Yeah.
And you can get the top if you come first in the cup, you get 12 points as well, isn't it?
No, 5. I wish it was 12 points. It's a very skewed ladder. Like, I mean, if you come top 50 on ladder, that's more than coming first in a cup because top 50 on ladder is 6 points minimum. Depending, like 26 to 50 is 6 points. 11 to 25, 8. 2 to 10 is 10 points, and first is 12.
Yeah.
So any of those is more than the first place in a cup, and second place in a cup is only 3 points.
Oh
So
wow.
then you're looking at only just being better than top 100 legend. And I mean, like, sure, top 100, top 10, those are very difficult placements to get in legend.
Yeah.
The ladder is very, very competitive, but some people do get a little bit frustrated by the fact that it involves so much ladder grind,
Yeah.
especially
There's been a
considering
lot of talk about that.
ladder grind is especially heavily sort of focused towards the end of the month. Um, and considering you're qualifying for a tournament that has this whole pick ban system, it would make more sense really if more points were skewed that way at least. I tend to
So,
be in agreement with theirs. I find it difficult to grind ladder as much as I enjoy playing open cups.
but anyway, so yeah, so you get these ACT points, and then I think the top, I think it's top 64,
Yeah.
get basically them going to the prelims where you have a bunch of players who who also qualify through the Tavern Hero system. So this is basically where venues have had fireside gatherings that have been approved by Blizzard, and then the winner of that is the Tavern Hero, and then
Yeah, so
basically
it's the top 64 point earners plus eight Tavern Heroes um, that come through that Tavern Hero tournament that happens on the
a
day
massive
before.
open qualifier. Yeah,
Yeah, so that happens on the Friday before the playoffs. And
yeah,
over the last 3 weekends, we've seen the playoffs for each region. Basically, each region has their playoffs starting with EU, and then NA, and then Asia Pacific. And China has, well, a whole different system that we're not going to go into. Um, but sorry, these seasonal playoffs, players have to actually attend the venues if they're playing in these playoffs. They have to attend one of the approved fireside locations to participate to ensure that there isn't any cheating or anything that goes on,
yeah.
or anything dodgy like that. Um, and as you said, they occur, every season. So winter, spring, and summer, and then last call is also a
And then you get
different
the top,
system.
and then you get the top. Basically, they narrow it down to top 16, and then top eight, and then they basically the top four. No, and then
Yeah.
top four. The top four of each region basically now make the regional championship. So the
Well,
spring, the summer, the winter
the
championships,
seasonal championships, yeah.
the seasonal
Which
championships. Yeah,
where they compete against the top four from each of the other regions. So that would be your top 16, your top four from
yeah,
Europe, the top four from NA or North America. Well, Americas actually. Sorry, it
yeah,
includes South America as well as North America. Uh, your top four from Asia Pacific and your top four from China.
yeah. And then what happens is then these guys now play a tournament. I think it's I'm not. I think it's single elim.
Uh, what the season championships?
Yeah,
No, it's
is that
a
what it
group
was? Oh, it was
stage
group
into
stages.
it's
Yeah,
group stage into single elimination, and then the
into top
top,
eight.
yeah, and the top four from that, is it?
Yeah, top
Yeah,
four make
top
it
four
to
from
BlizzCon.
that make it to,
Well, the World
well, the
Championships.
World Championships, which is now no
Yeah,
longer at BlizzCon, but used to
yeah,
traditionally be at BlizzCon. Um, and that's where they play for the big prize. The seasonal championships does have a $250,000 prize pool,
yeah. It's
which
quite
is
nice.
pretty nice, as well as being always located in like a specific location. And what they'll do is they'll fly the players to that location. So what we saw in the uh, winter championships, it was in the Bahamas. So a nice trip to the Bahamas for everyone, and everyone that qualified, that is the top 16. Um and for the upcoming uh, spring playoffs or spring championship, sorry, we're
Yeah,
going to see the championship taking place in Shanghai.
yeah,
So I'm pretty excited to see that. I imagine we're going to see a lot more spectators at the event than
yeah.
could make it to the Bahamas.
Yeah, 'cause Bahamas thinks it's a nice venue, but it is a bit far out. So majority of players. So I know there were some non like people who weren't playing that went there obviously for a holiday and to meet people. But yeah, like you say, Shanghai, it's in a big metropolis, so you're likely going to get a lot more people, just random traffic, Whereas on the Bahamas, I can't imagine there's that much. You're not going to get that much incidental foot traffic,
Yeah,
of random
you're not
people.
going to get as many locals that are going to be interested.
Exactly.
Whereas Hearthstone's pretty big in China and
Yeah.
pretty big in
Shanghai's a big
Shanghai in
thing.
particular. So I mean, Shanghai is pretty much the esports capital of China, I think. So I imagine we're going to see pretty big crowds there, and that certainly helps add a lot of atmosphere to the event.
Mm.
It's going to make it a
Crowd.
lot more
Yeah,
pressure for the players, I think, versus like the
definitely.
more chilled atmosphere in the Bahamas. Even
Yeah.
though obviously there was all the pressure of, you know, having 100,000 or more people watching you on stream and the games mattering a lot to qualify for the World Championships, they didn't really see that pressure in front of their faces with large crowds, and that's going to be a bit different. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects players at the Shanghai,
Mm.
um, in Shanghai. But speaking of the players that will be playing there, uh,
Before we move on, do the last call work the same way as the seasonal championships, or how did the
no,
last call? How does the
last
last call?
call is I'm not sure how it's working this year. Previously, it was the best points earners in played in like a seasonal championships thing as well. Uh, or last year the whole system was different, so they played against their region. It was like the top 16 points earners over the year for
Uh,
the region played against each other to then determine the top four that went to, or it was like top two or top one that went to BlizzCon, because it was only the winners of each region's things that went then. Yeah, so It was quite complicated. This season, I'm not exactly sure, but I'm pretty sure it's one. I think it's just the top 4 point earners that go like straight up.
Okay,
Uh, so there's a lot of value in being the number 1 point earner in your region.
that's
Um,
quite difficult too.
yeah, it is very very difficult. But we'll see. I'm not entirely sure. We
Yeah,
don't really want to go into that because I don't have some of the
the
details to be honest.
yeah. Okay, so yeah, we're moving on to the APAC.
Yeah, so moving on to the players that actually, well, firstly, the players that have qualified that we've seen qualify so far. So from Europe, the European Spring Championship, we had Hoi, Calento, RDU, and Iria qualifying. So a very, very stacked lineup of players qualifying there. Uh, Nyria being a returning player from having qualified previously for um, the Winter Championship. He's going to be back again, and that's a pretty big feat for him qualifying again. And of course, everyone knows Calento, and RDU and Hoy are also, very well-known players that have been quite established in the scene for quite a while.
Yeah.
I mean, your thoughts on the European qualifiers?
Yeah, yeah, quick as far. I mean, if I remember, the whole of the top eight was a pretty stacked. The whole top eight was pretty stacked in terms of like you just had big names everywhere, and I mean, I remember us chatting, and even one of the people that let's say I would regard as least US, still like, no, this guy's pretty well known. I can't even remember what his name is. Fabello, I think
Oh,
his name.
Fibeli, yeah.
Yeah,
He
Fabello.
came out of the Swiss as the top seed.
Yeah,
So like I
but
think
I'm
he was
saying,
he was unbeaten in Swiss and then lost to
yeah.
to Hoy, I think, in the top 8 game.
But yeah, like we, like I said, the fact that it's quite impressive, and the fact that those guys are consistently reaching there is, I think, it adds credibility. We always joke that Hearthstone is or an RNG fest, but the fact that clearly these guys are doing something skill wise that the rest of us aren't doing, I
Yeah, yeah.
mean,
I mean, the fact that they're getting consistent results, like Naria in particular,
yeah,
top four, both of the playoff events, is a testament to the skill that it does take to, make it to these events and do well. And Europe is a very, very tough region.
yeah,
The most difficult to qualify just on the top 64 for, based on the like points cutoff. And it is very, very like stacked with top players because you basically have to play in whichever region you reside in. It's based on residence as to where you actually have to participate with your points. Um, and then we had the Americas Spring Championships last weekend. Well, sorry, weekend before last.
yeah.
Um, and the 4 players that qualified from that were Muzzy, Kuonet, Ant, and Diego Diaz. So we had 3 American players there, and Diego Diaz from Brazil, who I think will be the first Brazilian player at seasonal championships. I'm pretty
I
sure,
think it might be, yeah,
especially considering they just changed the format and there was no Brazilian there last at the Winter Championships. So I'm
yeah.
fairly sure. So that's a nice result for South America and Brazil in particular. Um,
Brazil are an up and coming country as well. They're starting to produce more and more sort of more well known players. I
mm,
think Leo Main is Brazilian.
yeah,
Then what's it? There's someone else. But yeah, I mean, like they're starting to get a lot more well known,
yeah.
like more well known in the scene.
Yeah, they are. Surprising to almost see no Canadians this time.
Oh yeah,
Usually the
that's true.
Canadian Hearthstone players do really well, like Sidonia, Hot Form, um,
Purple.
Purple. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really notable Canadian players. So we didn't see any this time. We saw Muzzy go 10 and 0 in the Spring Championships though to take home first, going completely undefeated in that tournament. Uh, and Muzzy, to those that don't know, is like one of the sort of the most well-regarded players in the North American scene in particular. Well, yeah, in the North American scene in particular.
Yeah,
He's sort of one of the go-to players that a lot of the other pros discuss decks and strategies with. Uh, his game knowledge is like pretty almost unparalleled, I'd say, in the North American scene. He's a
he's
really,
very
really top
well.
player.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, like honestly,
yeah. A lot of people.
I don't think the North American scene, like I think Muzzy is like ahead of a lot of people in the North American scene.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean, a big testament to him there. And like, Ant is also, if he makes it to the World Championships, I think, he's returning to a seasonal championships. I'm pretty sure. Like last year or the year before, he played in one of the what was then like the North American or American Championship. But he,
Think
I
so.
think he was at the 2014 BlizzCon or something like that. Like,
Well, no, I don't think so. I don't think he's been to BlizzCon before.
I think he might have. Like, I'm pretty sure he is like, well, yeah, um, he has been to like big events before. He's not an unknown. He
Yeah,
just has
he's
been
not
like
know.
really quiet for a long time. Um, so that's a good result for him as well. Um, And then we have Diego Diaz and Kuonet, who are the two more unknown players. Obviously, we don't really know the Brazilian scene that well in particular, so not much of a surprise we don't really know Diego Diaz. Kuonet
Yeah.
did impress me with his performances, though. So the Americas, overall a bit more mixed between known and unknown players than Europe. Um, and then China, they have their whole own system. Do you want to tell us a bit about these Chinese players, though?
Oh, the players. I was going to
Yeah.
say the system itself.
No,
I
not
don't
the
like. It's
system.
a
No.
really complicated qualifier. But so Jason Zhao, he was at BlizzCon last year. I think he came top. Was he top eight? I can't remember how he did. But he
I
basically
don't remember.
him and X Hope are both were BlizzCon, I think, last year, and I think they both are really well known in the Chinese scene. And even X Hope won the China versus EU
Yeah, EU versus
championship.
CN, winning
I
a Ferrari there.
Yeah, and then even Dog, I think he came top. Did he come top? He made the semis, didn't he?
I think he lost to X Hope in the final,
Yeah,
if
he
I
might.
remember
Yeah,
correctly,
yeah. So he's
of the EU
also
versus CN. Yeah.
one of the more notable Chinese players, and the same with Trunks. Both like the thing I think both like all of these Chinese players are really big in the Chinese scene. But now in terms of from a Western perspective, we only like now we recognize Jason Zhao and X Hope, and slowly
Yeah.
now guys like Dog and Trunks. The fact that we see them like, over and over again, you eventually start recognizing them and knowing, oh, these guys are pretty good.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. I mean, X-Hope, known as the Hat Eater from the Winter Championships, being there
yeah,
as well.
these
So
magical hats.
yeah, he's also returning to the Winter Championships, or returning to his second championships, much like Nairia. So that's a good performance. And the Chinese system is a long and arduous system to qualify, and it takes it does do a pretty good job, I'd say, of selecting some of their best players just for
Tough
how long
grinder.
this. Yeah, it is a very tough grind. So um, it's not too much of a surprise we see Jason Zhao and X Hope coming back. I think Jason Zhao was also at the Winter Championships, wasn't he?
So who?
Was Jason
Jason.
Zhao also at the Winter Championships?
Ooh,
Yeah,
can't.
anyway, it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter. And then lastly, there was the Asia Pacific Spring Championships, which we saw qualify, or we saw happen over this weekend. Um, uh, sorry, which one is it? This one. Yeah. Okay. So the Asia Pacific, this includes, Japan, Korea, all the Southeast Asian countries, as well as Australia, New Zealand, um, and I'm sure there's some other countries I'm missing. This is quite a
Yeah,
extensive region throughout there. And this is the first time in particular they've gone to a format like this. Previously, uh, they've had quite sort of other weird formats where they've had regional stuff like Japan specific and um, Australia, New Zealand specific, and then sent their best players. Whereas now we've seen an open format where it's all of the players in that region competing each other in pretty much an exact replica of what we saw in EU and NA for the format.
yeah.
You want to tell us a bit about the players that we had that had some good results in this?
Let me just the players who did well. Because basically, I mean, of the top eight, there are a couple well-known. Actually, not that many well-known. I mean, depending how close you follow. So the notable guys who came top eight were Kranich, who made BlizzCon. I think was it 2014?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure wasn't it? He lost to Firebat at some point in the BlizzCon he
Yeah,
won,
I think.
and then he was also there last year, wasn't he?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
Kranich, he's sort of Korean, who's obviously become quite well known. Um, I think like sort of the more popular names are Gundam Flame.
yeah. Gundam Flame also
Uh,
A
sort of,
well-known Japanese player.
and then Mage, who he actually won it, I believe. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, well, I mean
Um,
the bracket is on the screen right now, so they can
yeah,
see it. Mage
yeah,
from Australia actually
yeah.
managing to win.
Managed to win, and he's obviously for what while he's been his name's constantly, in the competitive scene, his name is
Yeah,
there. So I mean, the other two guys, Treads Red and Citizens Napa, I can't say I've ever heard of them.
no.
But just remember, I think the thing is because we still predominantly focus on EU and NA, we don't really follow a lot of the other scenes,
Yeah,
that
Asia
closely.
Pacific in specific
It's
A-
in
Asia
Pacific.
Pacific specifically tends to be more unknown players just because of how little exposure a lot of these players in this scene get. I mean, Mage gets uh, some exposure from his ladder exploits on the North American on the Americas server. He plays a lot on that, I believe. Kranich has gotten more notoriety for his performances at BlizzCon before and
Yeah,
his attendance of those Western tournaments, also having been on a Western team and played in a lot of Western tournaments for a while. So it's good to see these scenes growing, in particular Japan, which has traditionally been a very strong nation for card playing games. They've done very well in games like Magic the Gathering before, so it's interesting to see,
yeah,
three Japanese players making the top eight. Uh, it's a pretty good uh, indictment that they are improving a lot as a nation, and they're going to be, maybe a force to be reckoned with. We saw, three Japanese players and two Koreans, so maybe they're going to start to dominate over the other island nations in the Asia Pacific region.
yeah.
Yeah, so it was definitely interesting. It was a bit of awkward times for us to watch. I think it started at something like 4 or 6 a.m. South African
I didn't
Standard
watch.
Time.
I
So
don't think I ever watched.
yeah, I didn't really watch any of it. I just started catching up on VODs over the weekend. Um, yeah, I mean, part of the reason I didn't watch as well is was also busy casting ESL Africa again, the ESL African Championship Series. Um, I don't know if you managed to catch any of it, but we saw like another um, very interesting game week as things are starting to shape out a bit more. And I think we'll discuss that a bit more next week. Hopefully, we can
Yeah,
get another guest that from another participant as a guest on next week to discuss the ESL African Championship Series stuff a bit more. There was
yeah.
also some like wild tournament stuff from that ladder thing of top 64 wild in region. They announced who qualified for the wild tournament, and that was pretty stacked. I don't have the list in front of me, but there was. I mean, because personally, I actually don't really care that much about Wild, so I didn't really look that closely at the list. But it was a very, very stacked list, and they've also been having some Wild tournaments in China recently, which was quite interesting. And Starladder also managed to get their players that have qualified for the land final. So it's been very busy week in esports, and this is great. It's great to have all this support for esports for Hearthstone. So looking forward to more weeks, and we're going to be bringing you more esports news every week. So you can keep up to date what's happening with what is happening in Hearthstone esports.
Yeah. Definitely. It's lots of just too many. Sometimes it feels like there's too many things to keep up to, and you can't follow everything because you've got to
Yeah.
worry about the time differences, and then you got to worry about like real life as well.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we've also just in terms of time on the stream, we don't really have time to go into the Star Ladder and the Wild and
Yeah.
all that other stuff. As we've sort of focused a bit more on the HCT stuff now that they're finished with determining the 16 players we're going to see in the Spring Championships in Shanghai, which I'm definitely looking forward to. That's going to be really, really interesting. I think in like 2 weeks or something it will be something like that.
Yeah, I
It's
think
going to be
so.
happening relatively soon. Um, so I'm looking forward to that, and we'll have another. They'll have another sort of pick your champion thing and some packs to be won.
I
Uh,
mean, just gotta go
so
looking.
yeah, maybe
All
we
I'm
can
saying
even
is
give
all
some
of Europe is
predictions in
quite.
future week.
All I'm
Yeah,
just saying is all of Europe is pretty stacked.
yeah, Europe is definitely a good place to randomly pick your champion if you want to try
You,
and just randomly select one from there.
you don't follow the scene too closely. Like that's definitely the way to go. You know.
Yeah. But otherwise, I think that's all we have for Magma Rages episode 16.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add before we sign off.
It's just I think also coming up. I'm not exactly sure the dates, but the ESL, the second season, still the
Yeah, the
qualifiers are still coming up.
qualifiers.
Yeah, are still coming up soon. But then there will only be four, and you have to win that qualifier to make it into basically a playoff against the bottom four players from the current year.
Yeah, when we have some more information on the dates and that, we'll inform everyone about that. But that's going to be pretty exciting as well.
Yeah.
We'll get some new blood into the ESL, maybe if they can actually beat the established players that are going to be in that relegation battle. Um,
Yeah, it's going to be the struggle, like I think both of us are going to be trying still to qualify if we can.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean that's going to be interesting for all the African players out there watching this. But yeah, that's all we have for episode 16. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, follow. All those things help the channel grow. Tweet at us at DalePon and at Dib_gaming. Follow us and tweet at us if there's anything you would like us to maybe discuss on future episodes, or anything you think we missed, or just any feedback you really want to give. It's all appreciated. Um, so yeah, hit us up on that social media, and otherwise, we're out until next week. Cheers.
Cheers.